And it's the AMAAAZING Indians for centuries. They have said
they
and
made
have
this?
called. No. The Indians have said this was made by gods to be a two-dimensional, going and coming doorway to where the gods live. Jerry had studied, and he had a guide named Pedro, one of the AMAAAZING Indians, who said on this trip with his bride as a celebration that he would take Jerry and teach him how to get down on his knees, put his forehead in this little, kind of like I've seen a picture, it just looks like the rock goes in like this, like a lens shape. Right. Puts the forehead in there, and the shaman taught him a sound frequency said with symbols. Jerry has shared it with me and has asked me never ever to repeat it. And that if Jerry got his forehead and did this chanting of this frequency just correctly, he would literally disappear and would go to another dimension, the dimension of where the gods live, and hopefully come back.
I was going to ask, can you come back?
So, his wife is 100 feet away. She is watching the entire scene. Jerry gets down on his knees, he leans forward with his forehead, he puts it in the rock. Many, many times he says this frequency. And then she sees him disappear, literally, disappears. And we have, I think, what happens next with Jerry, we can at least share his words. He goes to a white place. It's like a laboratory. It has a hard floor. And a voice comes in, a male voice.
Is he scared when this is happening?
He has no idea what's happened. He was there at the rock, and then it's all white, but his feet are on something he compared to Lexan. He tried to jump on it, and then this male voice comes and starts talking to him. And this is where we have an excerpt.
Well, let's listen.
He said that I was on another world, that it was outside of my universe. So I wanted to understand how that's possible. And he says, well, there are many universes, and you have just passed from yours into ours. All right, so where is this universe? He said, it wouldn't do me any good to even try to explain it to you. I asked him how I'd gotten there. Well, apparently, whoever they are had been very curious about the nature of the universe. They tried to recreate a model of the universe. He was talking about how they were colliding particles, and somehow a spark had occurred, and the spark didn't go away. Instead, it started growing. And as it grew, it started accumulating and creating more of itself on its own. It was quite large, and they had created another universe. They weren't planning on doing this. And it had evolved, and it evolved quite rapidly. I said, well, I don't understand this, because we think the universe is billions and billions of years old. He says, well, where you are, you measure time much differently. Time is different in every universe. And when he was telling me about this, they were really very afraid that it was going to continue growing and it would just overwhelm them, and then what would happen to them. And that what they had discovered is that they were inside of someone else's universe, just like we were inside of theirs. He says it's just layers and layers. There's very little that separates one from the other. And they had learned that life had started to populate throughout that universe.
They had made.
Yeah, they were fascinated by this, curious as can be how this was possible. And this doorway that I had gone through was something that they had put in place. They had these doorways throughout our universe in various places. They had been sending scientists in there to study the universe. because this was a whole new realm of science for them to explore. And when they started discovering life in there, well, they were pretty shocked. Apparently, I'm not the only person who'd ever come through that doorway. And apparently, these doorways go to other places on this planet as well as to other planets. The only thing that I can figure is that moving from one point to another was outside the dynamic of time altogether, that these doorways are instantaneous passageways to other places.
That's fascinating.
Well, and that last statement, doorways that could be instantaneous to other dimensions placed around this planet. Remember Lieutenant Philip J. Corso, in his book, The Day After Roswell, and he goes into really saying that the government has known about extraterrestrial biological entities for a very long time, collected technology that we have back engineered, and has a part in that book where he lists 9 places on the Earth that our government understands.
Key points.
That there are what are called natural collapses of the electromagnetic field, and that where any electromagnetic fields do collapse, have a weakness, things can come in that move magnetically in the universe. And in fact, that we are dealing with intelligences that know how to provoke the collapse of magnetic fields. And then, if you can go to the speed of light, let's just say that we're dealing with intelligences that can go at the speed of light.
And one day we will.
Well, they can go point to point. And if Good is right at Harvard, he's been speculating this for a couple of decades, that we're not just a universe with a trillion galaxies and that this is it, that there could be an infinite number of galaxies, an infinite number of universes, an infinite number of dimensions. And that part where the voice is telling Jerry that they discovered, the whoever the they is, that their universe has another dimension that is encompassing it, or another universe, and they're encompassing this one, and we could be encompassing another. All of a sudden, you have this idea of those Russian dolls that are all embedded in each other, that this cosmos could be universes inside of each other going on, and suddenly the whole issue of why is it that some people have seen blazing white crosses in their life that have saved them, or somebody is falling off of a cliff and they say it felt like Jello came and lifted them up. There have been the miracles of this planet.
I've had calls on Coast to Coast, Linda, where people are ready to crash to a vehicle and they go right through it.
Yes, or over it.
Or over it.
In abductees. I've